One of my absolute favorite mediums to craft with is wood. You can make so many things for your home that are affordable and substantial, which is awesome. So today I've got a ton of ideas for Christmas for you. These are ones you can make for your own home, or you can also sell to make a little money this holiday season. You're watching Whiskey and Whit. My name is Whitney, and a huge thank you to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Also, a huge thank you to my craft buddies who are here each and every week to DIY with me. If you're not already a craft buddy, no worries. It is so easy to join. If you like what you see today, just hit subscribe down below so you won't miss any future Christmas content from me. Now let's get into the wood builds. So much of the wood that I'm using today in these projects came from the value wood section at my local Menards. Mine has been really well stocked lately, so if you can find some of these remnants that are like less than 3 feet that they put here, I love it because it makes stuff so much more affordable. Now around the holidays, I love to have mugs out, and so I thought a mug tree would be a great project for extra storage, and it would also make a great gift. So for this project, we're going to cut 3 squares from a 1x6, a 1x4, and a 1x3. You're going to do that by measuring the width of your wood and then cutting the length to the same amount. And then we're going to cut a 2x2. You can use a furring strip or regular pine down to 12 inches. Now, something to keep in mind, if you're looking at like a 1x6, let's say, you're going to think it's 6 inches, but it's really not. It's more like 5.5. So measure the width and then cut. We're going to sand everything down, and then we are going to assemble before we finish. So we're going to drill a pilot hole in both ends of our 2x2, right in the center. Just go ahead and measure and mark. Then you are going to use some pressure and drill that hole. We're also going to drill a hole, measure and mark the center of your 2 smaller squares, so the 1x3 square and the 1x4 square, and we are going to drill a pilot hole there as well. Start your screw in the piece of wood before we go to assemble this. It's going to make it so much easier, and you only just want it to pop out just a little bit. Then you're going to use the little tip of the screw that has popped through the other side of the wood and line it up with that pilot hole that you've made on your 2x2. Not only do the pilot holes make it so your wood isn't going to split because we're working with cheap soft pine wood here, but it's also going to help you line everything up. It's really hard when you're drilling like this without a guide to try to get it centered. Then we are going to drive the 1x3 square into one end, flip it over, repeat that on the other side. And then we are going to use some wood glue and a craft stick to apply it. I'm just spreading it out like I'm putting butter on toast. And then I'm going to center that 1x4 square on there, and then you can reinforce it with either a hammer and nails, or if you have a nail gun like I do, I'm using 1 1/4 inch brad nails. You can finish this however you want. You could paint it red. I'm going to keep it pretty neutral so I could use it throughout the year. We're going to use Early American Stain. Then after the stain has dried, you can go through with a sealant. I just sprayed a polyacrylic on it, and then we are going to go through and measure to add our hooks. These I grabbed from Amazon. I've had these for years, so I'll link them down below, but you could use whatever hooks you have. I'm going to measure 2 inches down from the top, which is from that 1x3, on 2 of the sides, and then we are going to flip it and measure down and mark 5.5 inches. What this is going to do is it's going to give you room for all your mugs, and it's going to balance the weight so it's not going to plop over when you use it. Then we're going to go through, add the pilot holes, center those hooks, and then when all the pilot holes are drilled, we're going to go back through with the screws and add those hooks. Then your last step is to finish the top. This is optional, but I wanted to cover that screw, so I took a knob handle that I had recently taken off something that was just sitting in my garage, and I added some super glue and added it to the top just as a decorative finish. Let that super glue dry, and then it is good to go. I love how this turned out. This is my take on Anna White's mug tree. You guys know I love Anna White, and this would be great for so many different things. Extra storage, it would make an awesome gift. These are Dollar Tree mugs, these little snowmen. How cute. Grab 4 of those, some hot cocoa or some coffee. This would be a great gift for teachers, coaches, neighbors. It comes together so quick and easy, and I just love it. After all the wood projects I have done this year, I have ended up with a ton of scrap, so I decided to make a scrap wood Christmas tree lot. What you're going to do is you're going to set your saw to 22.5 degrees, and you're going to cut an edge off. Then you're going to flip it over and create a triangle. Make sure you have enough to keep your fingers back, and you're going to cut another 22.5 degree angle to create this triangle. This is going to be the top of your tree, and you can cut this out of 1x material, 2x material. Then we're going to measure the bottom to create the rest of the tree. So here's how I did that. So what I'm doing is I am taking this bottom part here and I'm measuring it. So this is a little over 8. Then I am subtracting in 1/2 of an inch. So for that first one, it was 4.5. So then this top part is going to be 4. If this is 8, then this next one is going to be 7.5. So we'll cut it and then we'll see how our tree fits together. I'm cutting this angle, but where I'm cutting is right here, and I want to be able to hold on to this part of the wood because it's thicker. So we're going to flip it until we get the angle that we want. So we've got our perpendicular angle, and my fingers are too close here. So I'm going to spin this around. We've got our perpendicular angle, and I'm going to line up my blade with my mark. So whether the mark be here or up here, mark where you need it. And then here, this is a lot chunkier of a piece for me to hold on to than this little nub, and it's a lot safer for your fingers. Ta-da! I went through and used some 2x6s. I also used some 1x4s, 1x3 scrap, and then the bottoms are either just leftover 2x board or I used some leftover 1x2, just whatever scraps I had on hand. Then to assemble them, I'm going to do the assembly first and then sand, so in case any of this wood glue that I'm using pops out, I'm able to just cover it up. I'm going to stack these up using wood glue, and then you're going to see me doing this throughout the video. I just recently started doing this and it makes it so much easier. Put the wood glue on, spread it out with a craft stick, and then put your next piece on top. Let that dry. I gave it about an hour. It doesn't need an hour, but I wanted to give it enough time to set up. And then I am sanding the tops and the sides. It makes it a lot easier to sand a larger chunk like this than trying to keep your fingers back when you're sanding the little pieces. I also forgot to add the bottom to this tree, so I just marked the middle of the bottom section as well as the middle of my little stump, and then I was able to add that same way wood glue. Then some of them I stained in Early American, and then the other ones I decided to do a faux paint stain with this color Moss by Waverly. I just mixed the paint with a little bit of water, applied it with my staining cloth, and it gave this really pretty green color while also not covering up the wood grain, because with wood projects, like, I really want some wood grain in there and I didn't want to cover it all up. So I really like this muted green, but you could, with any of these projects, finish it however you want. Then I have this adorable little Christmas tree farm setup with some fairy lights. This is my new Hobby Lobby garland that I got for the Christmas section with some picks. I just love how this turned out. You can put them in large groups. You can put them in groups of 3. You could make a ton and cover your mantle. So many options here, and it's a great way to use up that scrap before the year is done. When I'm out here creating wood projects for you guys, I am being as efficient as I possibly can be. That means I'm cutting at the same time, I am sanding at the same time, staining, etc. So then that way I'm not touching stuff multiple times, and it helps me be super productive. Now, while I'm out here being productive, sometimes things on the inside of my house go to the wayside. That includes meal planning. But as a mom, I don't want that to happen because I want to make sure that I'm feeding my family better for you meals each and every night. So here is how I do that while also keeping up with my business. My secret is HelloFresh. This box just got delivered, and this is how I'm able to stay on top of meals and meal planning. Let's go inside and unbox it. We love HelloFresh in our house, and they've made a ton of upgrades lately that make it even better, like premium proteins, think steak and seafood in your box at no additional cost, making it a great time to try them out or give them a second chance if you have already tried them before. We've used HelloFresh for a while now, and what we really like is that the portions are really good size. A lot of times when you're looking at meal kits, I'm worried that the portions are going to be small. Not with HelloFresh. And the other great thing is they've just upped their portions. So not only did we like them before, but they are bigger now. In this box, we got sheet pan, lemon dill trout and asparagus, spicy maple chicken, and pork and zucchini bibimbap. What I love is how everything comes grouped by meal in one bag. I grab the bag, the recipe card, and the protein, like 1, 2, 3, and I'm good to go. The recipes are simple, colorful, and packed with fresh produce and protein, and it's seriously a lifesaver when I'm juggling too much. It's also been so fun to get to cook with Finn. Give a second chance to the new HelloFresh by using my code WhiskeyWhitFM at HelloFresh.com for 10 free meals and free breakfast for life. 1 meal per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as a discount on first box. New or returning subscribers only. Varies by plan. Sign up today, click the link below, and use my code WhiskeyWhitFM at HelloFresh.com. This next one is a great use for 2x4 scrap, but if not, you can buy a little 2x4 piece. You don't need a ton, as well as a 2x2 furring strip. I'm going to start by adjusting my saw so that I can cut a 45-degree angle. Now notice, this 45-degree angle is created with the back of the saw, not with the movement of the front of the saw. So for this one, we are doing what is called a beveled cut. That is made by tilting the saw's head to a different degree. A miter cut is what we did for the scrapwood trees, and that is made by pivoting your saw head horizontally. So miter is changing at what angle you cut straight down at it. A bevel cut is made by tilting the saw's head. So we're going to do a 45-degree bevel cut, and then we're going to tilt it back up to square and cut it down. Now you can make these whatever size you want. I made 2 at 5 inches from the bottom to the top point, and then 2 at 7 inches. We're going to do the same thing with the 2x2 furring strip. If you ended up doing the 2x4s at 5 inches, then I would add 2 inches to whatever that is. So these will be 7. And for my 7-inch one, I'm going to have a 9. So the reason that I am cutting my angle first and then doing the straight cut is because when I do it like this, you're getting your 2 45s in one cut. So it essentially saves you a cut. And if you're somebody that's a little apprehensive about angles to begin with, it's less time to have to cut. So then those 2 45s are cut with one, and then you are going to be left with 2 pieces of 2x4 and 2 pieces of 2x2 with the tops. Now we're going to assemble these into some beautiful wood churches. I'm going to start by sanding everything, and then we're going to assemble. So I'm going to start by taking the 2x2s and the 2x4s, some wood glue, and my little craft stick like we've been doing the whole time, spread the glue in between, and then I'm going to use clamps to hold them together. Let those sit, gave it about 20 minutes, and then we are going to go back through with some wood glue and attach the front of the steeple to the back of the church. Again, clamp them down, let them dry. That's as easy as it is to assemble it. Then we are going to stain them as a base coat. This is optional, but I just thought that that would be a really pretty base coat. You could also use a brown paint. You could really just Pinterest wood churches and get some inspo. And then once those are dry, it's time to really make them come alive. So I started with a pencil and wanted to create some like church windows, but when I started to do that, my freehand was a little wonky. So I decided to cut out a template from some cardboard, and then I was able to use that to trace it around. So I did 2 on either side and then 1 on the front and the back, and I'm going to use those as a guide when it's time to paint. I also used some cardboard to cut out crosses for the top of each steeple. Cardboard is a great way to add depth to wood pieces, especially when you're working with little pieces and like I'm not going to cut that out with a jigsaw. So cardboard is great. I like to use that for different features on like snowmen and things as well. So keep cardboard in mind. It doesn't all have to be wood and it still looks great. Then I'm going to go through and paint. So some of them I did the windows white, leaving the stain. Some of them I did the little windows as the stain and painted white all around. You can really get creative with these, and I did them so that they would coordinate but not be the same. Then I wanted to add a little bit of snow to one of my churches, so I mixed up some baking soda and paint, and then I just added that to the top with the brush. You can kind of load it on, and that is going to really give it a 3D effect. What I like to do after I do this is let it fully dry and then spray it with a clear spray paint. That's just going to seal that baking soda in. You can also use a polyacrylic, but I've found that the clear spray paint does not yellow. Then I just hot glued my crosses, which I painted just with some paint, and these are done. How cute! These are such a great use of scrap wood. You could also make barns. You could make little houses for a Christmas village. You could cover your whole mantle. Tons of different options, but these were inspired by Antique Farmhouse because I saw this and I was like, I think we can make these. And I think this dupe worked out really well. Now, if you love wood projects as much as I do, I've been doing these for years. I probably easily have like 75 plus wood projects here on my channel. I will link my full Christmas video down below, but if you see anything in here that you can't find that you want the tutorial for, just leave me a comment down below and I will help you find it. I've been making these for years on years, and I just love all the wood stuff that I have made for my decor every season. If you saw my fall version of this video, you saw I made this really cute Wanda the Witch, and I decided to head back to the value wood section to grab one of these $2.50 pieces to try my hand at a Santa Claus. Now, one of the biggest questions I got on that fall video for Wanda is, do you have a template? And I just freehanded it. You guys, I did the best that I could to create a template that you guys could follow as well. So this is available over on my blog. All the details on how to get it are down in the description, but you're going to print it out. It's 3 pages and cut it out, and you can kind of choose your own adventure here. You can cut out the hat and the beard and just do a like one-piece Santa, or you can do what I did and cut out the hat brim, the pom-pom ball for Santa's hat, and the mustache to make it a little more 3D. So whichever works. Whatever you decide to do, put them down on your piece of wood and you're going to trace it. Now the hat and the beard are 2 separate pieces just to make it so you aren't going to waste a ton of paper. So what you're going to do is line it up for how big you want Santa's face to be spaced apart, and then just go ahead and trace that like I'm doing here. Once everything is on there, I grab my jigsaw, make sure you've got a sharp new blade for that, and you're going to cut everything out. Now sometimes for some of these angles, you're going to have to take a couple stabs at it, and what I mean by that is you could go around and kind of cut off an extra piece, and then you can come at a different angle, and that will help you get all of these different angles out of there. But overall, it's a pretty simple shape, so it should be easy to cut out, and it's a great practice to use a jigsaw if you've recently got one. Here's what it looks like. I accidentally dropped my mustache on the ground, so I had to glue it back together because sometimes when you've got thin pieces of wood, they snap, so just be careful, but glued it back together, no harm, no foul. Now it is time to make Santa Claus come alive. I went up to my craft room and I painted the mustache, the hat, like puffy part of the Santa hat, and the Santa pom-pom white. And then I mixed up a kind of like beigey color for his face. I painted that, I painted the hat red, and while I'm doing that, I'm making sure I'm getting the edges as well. Then I'm going to do the beard and the little pom-pom area in white, just so then that way, if my piece doesn't cover fully or you see it from an angle, you want to make sure it looks finished. I'm not going to worry about the back because I'm probably going to hang it on a wall, but, you know, then that way it's kind of finished. Then I am going to kind of lay my mustache down and figure out where the beard needs to be. It might need a little bit more paint. And then once you have that all laid out, I also added some white on either side, so it looks just like, you know, Santa Claus with the hair. Then I had some leftover baking soda from those churches with white paint, so I decided to give his beard a texture. Growing up, my parents have in their house a textured Santa painted, and it just made me feel nostalgic when I finished this, so I'm so glad I did it. This is optional, but I stipple brushed that onto the beard as well as the mustache. So that area kind of had a little bit different texture, even though there's a lot of white on Santa Claus. Once that's all done, I did what I normally do. I pulled up a Pinterest inspo picture, drew my eyes, and I'm continually putting that mustache kind of in and out so I know right where everything needs to be. I like to do the artwork and then glue it on, but I also don't want to put the eyes and then put the mustache on and be like, oh no, I made a grave miscalculation. For his cheeks, I am just using some of this light pink ink pad and a makeup brush, and that gave it a really pretty pinky color. Usually I use acrylic paint, but I like how this turned out. Then I'm going to use my favorite black paint marker from Amazon and add the eyes. I use the end of a paintbrush for the little like dots or the glimmer in his eyes. And then I cut out a little nose, kind of a rounded triangle, and painted that the same color as his skin tone, just to really give it the 3D. So like I said, cardboard works with it. Then this was a last minute addition, but I had some black floral wire that I've had for years. I don't even remember why I bought this, but I didn't end up using it for whatever I bought it for. So I used a mixture of my pliers and my acrylic paint bottle to create these cute glasses. If you've seen pictures lately, my son Finn now has glasses, and I just, any chance I can to add glasses to things, he'll say, he has glasses like me. And so, you know, that is literally the best reason I love DIYing, because I can have moments like that with my son where I made this, you know, I don't want to get emotional, but you know, Christmas is big at our house. So when he saw this when he came home from school, it made my entire day. To hook on the glasses, I'm just using a couple dabs of hot glue and my pliers to make sure it all lays down. And then I thought it was a tad plain on the top half because we had the texture on the bottom, so I used my paint markers to add just a few whimsy lines like I normally do to the hat. I am beyond obsessed, you guys, and I'm also so happy that I made myself create a template because now you guys can create it too, even if you don't want to have to freehand. He is so cute, and he's going to be in our family for years and years to come. One quick tip, I would spray the entire thing with either a sealant or the clear spray paint, especially for the baking soda. That's going to seal everything down. I would do that before you add the glasses. I didn't do that, but I'm just going to go straight over the top, and it will be fine. If you've been a craft buddy for a while, this sled will look familiar. I can't believe I made this in 2020. It's been 5 years, and I really wanted something that looked a little bit more vintage. I still love this one, but I wanted a vintage looking sled, and you guys, I love this. I have combed the internet for a ton of tutorials, and I took bits and pieces from a ton of them to create my own sled that I think anybody can recreate. You literally can make wood and just a jigsaw, but I use my miter saw because I have one. You're going to get a 1x2 for your braces. I cut mine down to 11 inches wide. Then you're also going to need 1x4s. I cut those down to at 32 inches, and then the middle one is 35 inches. And then you are also going to need the skis for the sled as well as the top little decorative piece, and I use my jigsaw to get that. So here is how that came together. I have a 1x6x6, I believe this is, and I measured 45 inches from the end, and I kind of did this backwards initially, and I ended up having to shift. So you just want to make sure that with the curve you have enough room to create a 45-inch ski. Now I was like, how am I going to cut a straight line and get this marked? What I did is I took 1.5-inch painter's tape and put it down the edge of the wood. That gave me a really good guide on where I needed to cut. Then to create the edge, one of the tutorials mentioned that she used a gallon paint container to create the curve. So I did that. I just marked 1.5 inches after I did the top curve to create kind of that curve that I could cut with my jigsaw. Once everything was all marked off, I started at the bottom of each ski. So I ended up doing the curve on either end of the wood, and I cut into the bottom, and then I cut straight up the side, and then I did the curve. Now I had to be careful because one time I did break the ski off, so that's why I went with 1.5 inches instead of 1 inch. But this is a pretty easy process, and I'm utilizing the edge of my wood, so I only have to cut one side. The other side's already straight, so that helped with that. Then for the top piece, I just kind of wung it. It's really, it kind of looks like an oblong figure 8, so I kind of just cut off pieces until I got what I wanted, and you can kind of look at my picture for inspiration. Then on my two 32-inch and one 35-inch 1x4 pieces, first I started with tape, and then I ended up using a can of stain or sealant, and I marked a curve on top of all 3 of them. And then on the 2 outside pieces, I just did 1 corner curve, so then that way it kind of resembled what you would see with those old school vintage sleds. Then with everything we do with the jigsaw, you want to give it a really good sand, and I am going to rock around the corners to soften it. That is going to get rid of all that rough edging from the jigsaw, just because it is no longer the outside piece of the wood you're cutting into the wood, and that is going to help your stain and everything stick a lot better. So I'm going to sand all of those pieces, and then it's time to add some color. I decided to finish it and then assemble. So for all of the pieces, so the 3 11-inch 1x2 braces, my 3 slats for the sled, and that top little decorative piece, I did that all in Early American, and then I painted the skis red with Crimson by Waverly. You can, again, customize this however you want. That's just what I did for this one. And then it's time to assemble. So I'm going to lay out my 2 red skis, and use those 11-inch pieces to make sure everything's lined up. So you want the outside of either of those pieces lined up, and you want to make sure I'm using my little handle from my table to make sure that my bottom of the skis are where they want to be. Now for this 35-inch piece, I ended up sticking some out the bottom, and I liked how that turned out, so I did that so I had more room for the decorative piece on top. I'm going to go through with 1 1/4-inch brad nails, and I'm going to hook down all of these slat pieces. And then I'm going to go through with my little craft stick and wood glue to add my 2 side pieces and the center. I decided to do the 2 outside pieces first because you can flush those with those brace pieces as well as the skis. And then the middle, you can just easily line it up. I was afraid that if I went straight across, that once I put the middle one down, I would be like, oh, that's in the wrong spot. And then the one side's not lined up. So do your 2 outsides and then do your middle. Then I am going to add the wood glue and just hook the little decorative piece on top. Then you can decide to be done there, or you could do what I did and add a rope. The last sled that I did, the jute rope was very, very, very rough. And so I decided to use some of this like jute cording trim. It's very soft. If either of the boys grab it, it's not going to be rough on their hands. And I just I eyeballed a length, and then I used my staple gun to hook it to the back of that decorative piece. I didn't really want to drill a hole in anything because I really liked how it looked, but I wanted the little sled handle to make it look more realistic, and this worked out really well. When I tell you I was so happy with this thing, I cannot wait. I think it'll be really cute. Maybe I'll take some of Henry's 1-year pictures on it, but I always do a happy dance when something turns out how I want it to. I love this. You guys gotta let me know down below, are you gonna make a sled? Because I think you should. You definitely need to make one. This next one is super fun because you can change it out for any season, not just Christmas. So we're going to start in the fencing section, and I'm going to grab one of these pine post skirts as well as a flat top post cap next to it. So that's going to be about 12 bucks. You can also grab a finial if you'd rather do that. And then I am grabbing this fence post. It's $16, and I used it for my outside hanging signpost I did a couple years ago. And it is just the perfect size. You don't have to cut it. Then I am also going to grab some 1x4 boards because we're going to be making some directional signs, and I think a 1x4 is a good size. This is a 2x6 that we had left over from when I built my dining room table. It's all kind of wonky and this edge isn't straight, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to level this off so it's a straight cut, and then I'm going to cut 6 inches, so we've got a 6-inch square that's 2-inch thick, so that's going to give us about 1 inch around the outside to be the base of our post. So here's what we're working with. I've got my post. You could also use a 4x4 that you cut down. My saw is just not big enough to cut through a 4x4. I've got my piece that I just cut. So this is going to be the base. I've got this rim for some extra. It's got like trim, like some little like base trim, extra pizzazz. And then I've got this. So this I'm going to use as a lid that is removable because at Home Depot I found this. A solar light, so I am going to be able to swap it in and out if I want this to match the wood, how I'm going to finish it, or I can put the solar light on. Now, I need to figure out how big I want my signs to be because I'm going to make these interchangeable for different seasons. So this was just scrap I had in the garage, but I think this is probably a good size, maybe a little bit shorter. And then you can either do the arrows at the end, which I'll show you how to do. They're just 45-degree cuts, or you can just make them straight across. I cut all my pieces to 18 inches. You want to add an arrow end. All you're going to do is measure across, measure the center, cut a 45-degree angle off of one corner from the edge to the center, and then you're going to cut a 45-degree angle on the other side. I like to take the scrap from that first angle that I cut off and measure it, so then that way you have a mirrored cut. Then it's as easy as sanding everything down. We're going to assemble this post by adding that little square that we cut out of the 2x6. I'm going to do wood glue. I just measured 1 inch from the outside, and I used some trim head nails, about 5 of them, to hook it down. Then I also used some wood glue to add that skirting. This is optional, but I think it adds a little extra pizzazz. And then I'm going to stain the entire thing in dark walnut. And the cap I'm not going to attach because I want to be able to switch it out for that solar topper. I'm also going to seal the entire thing with some spray sealant. Then I'm going to paint the wood pieces whatever color I want the background to be with a chippy brush. So I'm going to do some fall ones and some Christmas ones. So I did white and red and orange. Then before I apply my vinyl decal, I'm going to spray some polyacrylic just so then that way my vinyl has something to stick to. And I'm going to cut out the words. You could hand draw this. You could also get stencils if you don't have a Cricut. There's a variety of different ways you could customize this. Then I'm going to apply them to the pieces of wood, and then I'm going to seal it with a coat of Mod Podge. I'm actually going to do 2 coats, and that is going to make it so it's not going to pop up. Then this is the fun part, we're going to make it interchangeable. So I am going to take my post that's been sealed and dried, and I'm going to add some of this industrial Velcro. It holds up to 10 pounds, my wood is not that heavy, so I'm going to trim it down so it fits directly onto my post. I'm going to stick that down, and I'm going to stick my sign right on top. You can measure to see kind of where you want everything to land. But then you're going to stick it down, let it sit. It says 15 minutes. I gave it a half an hour. And then you can easily peel them off and replace them. That is so fun because I am going to have Christmas, fall. I can do a bunch of different ones. So on one side, I did 4 pieces of Velcro so that I could do 4 wording signs. And on the back, I did 3 for the arrows at the bottom. And then I added just this little hook I got from Amazon. Now I can add a wreath as well as the 3 signs, and watch how easy it is to switch. And then if you want just the signs, you flip it around and you stick whatever signs you have on there. This is totally customizable, and this is another thing that would be really easy to sell. And you can offer kind of a mix and match bundle where you can make a bunch of these signs and then they can pick out whichever ones that they want. Make sure you're going to seal it with an exterior sealant if you are going to be using this outside. Mine's going to live in my house, so the Mod Podge and the interior sealant is fine, but keep that in mind if you're selling them and people are going to put them outside. I'm so happy with how everything turned out. I'm glad that I decided to squeak out one more wood project before winter hits us here in Illinois. Be sure to let me know down in the comments your favorite project. And while you're down there, be sure to expand the description so you can learn more about today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Give a second chance to the new HelloFresh by using my code WhiskeyWhitFM at HelloFresh.com for 10 free meals and free breakfasts for life. All of those details are down in the description, or you can simply use your device camera to scan this QR code and it'll take you right there. A huge thank you to them for sponsoring, a huge thank you to you for watching, and be sure to hit subscribe before you leave so you don't miss any of my future Christmas content. I'll be back again this Friday on Halloween, 10/31, for another round of the Mystery Box Challenge. Can't wait to see you then. Have a great week and happy crafting. Bye!